Hi there, and welcome to the Somewhere Between Here and Healing podcast. I'm Viv, your host and fellow traveler on this journey of navigating life after growing up with a narcissistic parent. Together, we'll explore the messy, the funny, and the downright unbelievable stories of family, life, and self discovery. Please let it be known I am not a therapist nor claim to be an expert in any way. I am simply someone who's been through it, still figuring things out, and I'm here to share my story with you. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get this thing started. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to my very first episode. Today, to begin things, I simply want to share a small portion of the beginning of my story. A story that has shaped me in ways that I am still coming to understand. It's not just about growing up with a narcissistic parent, it's about seeing how that upbringing has worked itself into so many parts of my life. It's about how those experiences have shaped the way I see myself, the way I show up in relationships, and the way I navigate the world today, a woman now in my 40s. This isn't going to be an easy story to tell, an easy thing or things to talk about, but it's important because I know I'm not alone. There are so many of us trying to make sense of where we came from, how it's impacted us, and where we go from here. So many of us that are hesitant to tell our stories, our truths, and for so many different reasons. If you have ever felt stuck, unseen, silenced, or like you're carrying pieces of your past that don't seem to belong to you, I want you to know you're in the right place. For as long as I can remember, my father's presence loomed large in my life, and not in that fatherly protective way, but more of an all consuming way. He was a narcissist, the center of everything. His needs, his wants, his moods dictated the rhythm of our household. And it wasn't just that he demanded attention, it was that the rest of us were conditioned to give it to him. If he was happy, we could breathe a little easier. And if he wasn't, that tension was palpable. Growing up in a household ruled by my father's moods was exhausting in ways I didn't fully understand until much later. The fear of walking on eggshells was ever present, always anticipating his next reaction, always gauging the temperature of the room before daring to speak or act. There was this constant internal conflict. I love my father because he was my father, but I also resented him for how small he made me feel. He had a way of taking up all the emotional space in the house, leaving little room for anyone else. Now, my mother, she played a crucial role in keeping this dynamic alive. As I would come to learn and understand much later on, she wasn't just complicit, she enabled it. She made sure his world stayed intact, even if that meant the rest of ours had to crumble. At the time, I didn't have the words to describe it, or even to acknowledge it, if I'm being honest, but I felt invisible, like I existed only as a pawn in a game, and that game being to serve the peace of the household, to uphold the look and feel of that perfect family, and to keep my secrets just those secrets. My mother's role as that enabler would only deepen my confusion. Was this normal? Is this what love looks like? Looking back now, I realize how those feelings have carried into adulthood, how it has conditioned me over years and years. It has taught me to prioritize others at my own expense. I had internalized the idea that my needs weren't as important as keeping the peace. That idea is not just emotionally draining, it is harmful. And I spent years undervaluing myself, unsure of how to advocate for my own feelings and needs. It also made me incredibly aware of other people's emotions and mindsets, a skill I can now see as both a strength and a weakness. As I mentioned, It wasn't until much later in life that I started to piece together the impact of my upbringing. For years, I thought the constant self doubt, my need for approval, the fear of speaking up, and so many more traits were just parts of who I was. But guess what? They weren't. They were survival mechanisms and patterns ingrained in me from years of trying to navigate a home ruled by a narcissist. And those patterns didn't just disappear when I left home, which was fairly early on, but they followed me into adulthood, into relationships, and even into my career. I spent 17 years working under a narcissistic boss, a woman whose manipulation and need for control mirrored my father's in so many ways. At the time, I couldn't see it for what it was. It felt normal, familiar, even. I didn't realize I was recreating the same dynamic I had grown up with, drawn to what I knew, even when I knew it was toxic. Her approval dictated my self worth at work, just as my father's approval dictated my self worth at home. She had a way of making me doubt myself, questioning whether I was good enough, smart enough, capable enough. It was as if I had traded one narcissistic person for another. And these patterns also crept into my personal relationships. I found myself gravitating toward people who took more than they gave, people who expected me to bend over backward to meet their needs while ignoring my own. It wasn't until I started recognizing these patterns that I began to question why I was so willing to give away so much of myself to others. In the past few years, I've done a lot of reflecting, asking hard questions about why I stayed in that job for so long, why I tolerated certain behaviors, and why I found it so hard to advocate for myself. How did I not see these patterns? What could I have done to stop them earlier? Why did I tolerate certain behaviors from others? And why was it so hard to say no? The answers to these questions haven't always been easy to face, but I'm finding out that they are necessary. I guess my big turning point came when I recently really began recognizing these patterns for what they were: chains. Chains that had bound me to roles I had never wanted to play. Roles like the fixer, the peacemaker, the one who always puts others first, who tries to hold things together, not only for themselves, but for the bigger picture, for family. Breaking those chains hasn't been easy. It has meant confronting parts of myself I didn't want to see. It's meant setting boundaries with family members who don't understand or don't want to understand why I need distance, why I needed to finally put my foot down. It's meant saying goodbye to relationships and situations that no longer serve me, even when it hurt. And I'll tell you what, it does hurt. Most importantly, it's meant reparenting myself. I've had to learn how to nurture the parts of me that were ignored or overshadowed. I've had to learn how to give myself the love and validation I never received as a child, to teach myself that my needs are valid, my feelings matter, and my worth isn't tied to how much I can give to others. I've had to unlearn the idea that setting boundaries makes me selfish or unkind. But the hardest part was confronting my own reflection, sometimes figuratively and literally. Seeing the ways I'd let these patterns take root in my life was painful, and recognizing that I had a choice to keep them or break them felt overwhelming. Still, with every small step, whether it was saying no, leaving toxic relationships, or simply allowing myself to feel my feelings, I felt a little freer. Now, I want to take a quick moment here and touch on something, clarify a little. For much of my life, I was caught between two opposing roles: the people pleaser and the truth teller. On one hand, I did what was expected of me, staying quiet when I needed to, choosing the right words to avoid conflict, and putting others' needs above my own, because after all, they're family, right? And on the other hand, I've always had this fire within me, this compulsion to speak up, to call out dysfunction, and to call out the truths that everyone else is too afraid to acknowledge. Being the family truth teller comes with a heavy cost. I wasn't just shut down by my parents or siblings. I faced resistance from extended family members and even society's expectations about loyalty to family. Instead of being heard, I was labeled a troublemaker. My voice became a problem, and my honesty a threat. I became what is often called the scapegoat. If someone was upset, it was my fault. If there was conflict, I was blamed for starting it. If feelings were hurt, I was the one expected to smooth things over. Or better yet, keep my mouth shut next time to keep the peace. It was exhausting to carry that responsibility, to constantly feel like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. Or worse, it was too much. This scapegoating wasn't just about assigning blame, it was a way to keep me small, to discredit the truths I was trying to share. But here's the thing, even when my voice was silenced, the truth didn't go away. It stayed with me, pushing and prodding until I could ignore it no longer. Well, one of the strongest reasons I want to tell my story now, unapologetically and in full, is because I am done carrying the blame for things I did not cause. I'm done staying silent to protect a dynamic that was never healthy to begin with. For years, I've been working to strengthen my voice, to reclaim it from the roles others tried to force me into. And now, in my 40s, I feel like I'm finally starting to step into my own. Surreal, right? I'm a wife to an amazing husband and a mom to two incredible kids. Every day, I'm reminded why this journey matters so much. Breaking these cycles isn't just about me, it's about them. It's about showing my kids what healthy love looks like, what boundaries look like, and what it means to stand in your truth, even when it's hard. This past year has been especially transformative. I made the decision to go almost no contact with my parents, a decision I never thought I would be faced with. The guilt, the doubt, and the grief still creep in sometimes, often times. But the space I've created has given me room to breathe, to start to heal, and hopefully room to grow. I'm discovering that healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning how to carry it differently. It's about finding strength in the cracks and rewriting the stories we've been told about who we are. As I mentioned before, this journey has reignited my voice, and it's a journey worth taking, even on the hard days. Speaking out, sharing my story, it's my way of reclaiming my power and turning something that held so much negativity in my mind and body into something that can hopefully help and inspire others. And with that, somewhere between here and healing was born. Now, it's about making that voice louder and my reach wider, not for validation, but because I know there are others out there who feel like they've been silenced too. If that's you, I hope my story reminds you that your voice matters, even when others try to quiet it. Speaking the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes others, is a powerful act of healing. If you've ever felt stuck in a cycle that doesn't feel like your own, I want you to know this. You're not alone. Healing is messy, yes, but it is also brave. It's stepping into the unknown, choosing growth over comfort, and discovering the parts of yourself you thought were lost. You're not lost. You just have to take that first step, or the second, or the 100th. Now, as I wrap things up here, I just want to say this isn't just the end of today's episode, it's the beginning of a much larger conversation. There's so much more to uncover, so many layers to peel back, more struggles, more discoveries, more insights. I'll be sharing the hard truths, moments of growth, and the stories that have shaped me, the things I question in the here and now. But it won't all be heavy, I promise. Along the way, we'll find space for lighter moments, for laughter, and for celebrating the small wins that make this journey worth it. This journey isn't just about understanding the past, it's about shaping a healthier, more authentic future. So, wherever you are right now, whether you're just starting to recognize the patterns in your life or you've been working on breaking them for years, I hope you'll stick around and join me. This journey isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about creating a life that feels true to you, true to me, one step at a time. If you've recognized pieces of your own story and what I've shared today, I hope you'll continue with me on this journey, wherever it may take us. Healing isn't linear, and it's certainly not easy, but you don't have to go through it alone. Together, we can navigate this messy, beautiful process of breaking cycles and stepping into a life that feels truly our own. And I cannot wait to share it all with you. Until next time, Viv. Thank you for listening and spending time with me today. I appreciate you all so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and follow me on social media. Your support means the world. Plus, it really helps a podcast grow and reach more people like us. And don't forget, I'd love to hear from you. Send me your questions, share your story, or just drop by to say hello at vivvance@gmail.com. Until next time, remember, healing isn't linear, life can be unpredictable, but you are never alone in this journey. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.